So today we're going to be talking about 5 ways that narcissistic mothers emotionally abuse their sons. And this is really important information. Stay to the end so you understand some of the things that you can do to help yourself if you are a son who is being abused by a toxic narcissistic mother. So today we're going to dive into this topic, and I don't think it gets nearly enough attention that it should, because most of the times we're talking about narcissistic mothers and their daughters. So when people think about the narcissistic mother, they often think about what happens with their daughters, but sons can be deeply affected too. In fact, many men spend decades struggling with anxiety, low self-worth, relationship issues, people-pleasing, even aggression, and emotional suppression, and identity confusion without ever realizing that the root of their pain can trace back to the relationship with their mother. Now, I want to be clear, not every difficult mother is a narcissist. Very important that we realize that. All mothers have flaws, but when a mother constantly prioritizes her own emotional needs over her child's developmental needs, the consequences can be profound and life-lasting. So let's talk about 5 ways that narcissistic mothers emotionally abuse their sons and what these sons need to understand if they want to heal and have healthy relationships. Number 1. She is going to make him responsible for her emotional state. Now, one of the most damaging things a narcissistic mother does is train her son to believe that her feelings are his responsibility to manage. If she's sad, he feels responsible. It's his fault. If she's angry, it's his fault. Therefore, he's responsible. He has to fix it. If she's lonely or depressed, he feels responsible. Somehow she manipulates him into thinking it has something to do with him. So instead of learning that every human being is responsible for regulating their own emotions, the son learns that it's his job to manage hers. As a little boy, he becomes hypervigilant. He learns to scan her mood, predict her reactions, and adjust himself accordingly. Now, he does not know that this is not love. This is emotional parentification, but he doesn't know that. He's a little boy. So as a little boy, he becomes her emotional caretaker, while the parent remains emotionally dependent and immature. As an adult, this can show up as codependency. So he becomes the family fixer. He becomes the rescuer in the family. He enables the siblings or the mom. He is the man who feels guilty for saying no, especially to his family of origin. He struggles to leave toxic relationships because he feels responsible for everyone else's feelings. Really important. Number 2, she uses guilt as a tool of control. Narcissistic mothers rarely allow their sons to become emotionally independent without punishment. When he develops his own opinion, she acts like she's hurt, he's done something offensive. When he sets a boundary, she becomes a victim, and they're very, very calculating at the way that they do this. If she gets a whiff that he's prioritizing a spouse, a career, or his own family, she is going to accuse him of abandoning her to some degree. Now, healthy members of families celebrate the children's independence. Narcissistic mothers often experience independence as rejection. And so guilt becomes the lash out. This is how they leash their sons back in. The son learns that being himself comes at a cost. He learns that choosing himself hurts someone else. And over time, he begins to abandon himself before anyone else has the chance. And this is how the subconscious programming develops of a son who's been born to a narcissistic mom. Now, below the veil of consciousness, his nervous system learns a few things. It learns that if I choose me, mom's going to get angry. Someone else suffers. Now, that belief can follow a young man into old age for decades. Number 3, she invalidates his emotional reality. Now, many sons of narcissistic mothers grew up emotionally disconnected because they were taught that their feelings don't matter. If he cries, he's too sensitive. If he complains, he's too emotional. If he's angry, he's being disrespectful. If he's hurt, he's overreacting. He's not allowed to have his own experience. If he's confused, well, that's because he has a problem. And rather than helping him understand his emotional experience, a narcissistic mother will dismiss it. The worst thing of all is she rewrites his reality. She rewrites reality, period. She minimizes his pain. She makes him doubt himself. She makes him feel crazy. And over time, he learns to disconnect and to freeze from his own internal guidance system. He can learn to stop trusting his instincts. He can learn to stop trusting his perceptions. He can learn to stop trusting himself. And when you don't trust yourself, you become vulnerable to manipulation from others. And you also expect others to manipulate you also. And this is where the effects of a narcissistic mother can damage a healthy relationship. And this is one reason adult children of narcissistic mothers often struggle to identify red flags in relationships, because they've been trained to override what they feel. Number 4, she treats him as an extension of herself. You got to understand, she doesn't even realize she's doing this. A healthy mother recognizes that her child is a separate human being. Narcissistic mother never makes that conclusion. A narcissistic mother often sees her child as an extension of herself, like a skin. So his achievements become her achievements. His life becomes a reflection of her image. Rather than asking, "Who is my son?" she's unconsciously asking, "How does my son make me look?" If the son doesn't pay attention to the mom's wondering about how that makes her look. And this creates enormous pressure for a son. The son can unconsciously, even if he wrestles with feelings for his mom, spend years chasing her approval anyway. He may become highly successful, but feel chronically empty. Why? Because he never had permission to discover who he actually was. He had to be what his mother wanted him to be. So he learned to say what she needed to hear. He learned to perform rather than connect. He learned to achieve rather than become. He learned to please rather than express from a healthy place. Now, healing begins when the son realizes that his worth was never dependent upon his performance, that was an illusion. He learns that his value was never supposed to be earned. And this is important. Number 5, she sabotages healthy relationships. Perhaps one of the most painful realities for sons of narcissistic mothers is discovering how much their mother influences or tries to influence their adult relationships. A narcissistic mother competes with girlfriends, competes with spouses. She creates drama. She plants seeds of doubt in her son's mind. She demands loyalty to her above the spouse. Or she tries to make the son feel guilty for building a life outside of her influence, not checking in with her. The son also finds himself caught between his mother and his partner. And because the programming began in childhood, he frequently feels responsible for trying to keep everyone happy. And this creates tremendous internal stress. Now, many marriages have suffered because the son never learned where his mother ends and he begins, because she never let him. She never let him. A healthy relationship requires emotional separation. Narcissistic mothers don't want emotional separation. A narcissistic mother often experiences separation as betrayal. She tries to keep her sons close. Now, here are some final thoughts. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself, I want you to understand something super important. Your patterns did not emerge because you're a weak man or a weak son. They emerged because your nervous system had to adapt when you were a child to survive. As children, we don't consciously choose these roles. Our brains are wired for attachment. You wanted to feel connected to your mom. You adapted. Your nervous system accommodated. And we become who we think we need to become in order to maintain those connections, even if they're connections to narcissistic parents. But healing begins when you move above the veil, when you begin to observe these patterns from the observable space. It's where you begin noticing the program instead of living from it. It's where you recognize that guilt is not always guidance, it's just guilt. It's when you learn that your mother's emotional world was never your responsibility. She was supposed to be helping you individuate. It's where you finally begin reclaiming your right to think your own thoughts, feel your own feelings, and live your own life. The goal is not to hate your mother. The goal is not revenge. The goal, dear one, dear son, is awareness. because awareness is the doorway to your emotional freedom. And freedom begins the moment you stop carrying responsibilities that never belonged to you in the first place. When you say to your mom, thank you, but no thank you. So until next time, you want to remember that your trauma is not your fault. It's real. The narcissistic mother's way of raising you has impacted you, but you also want to remember that healing is your responsibility. And there is always a way back to yourself. A couple of things that you can do as you move forward, because I get this question a lot from sons of narcissistic mothers, is how do I deal with her? Number one, don't try to change her. She is who she is, and it's not your job to change her. Number two, you have to stop trying to resist what is. It's very difficult to accept that a narcissistic mother may turn your entire family against you, but if that's what she's always done to people who confronted her and didn't allow her to control them, you have to stop resisting that reality. You have to accept it. You have to give her permission. You have to say things to yourself like, I give my mother permission to turn everyone against me because that's what she does when she can't control you. The first time you say it, it's going to be like saying it through, your teeth are going to be clenched together when you say it anyway. The more you say it, the more you bring it into your conscious field, into the prefrontal lobe, then the less energy those old patterns and beliefs have over you. A lot of this has to do with accepting what you cannot control, dear one. If you go no contact with your mom, you have to understand that she's going to come after you hard. If you imagine that yourself in a tornado and the energy of the tornado, the gravitational pull of a tornado, the centripetal force, the moment you try to come out of that tornado, the force to suck you back in is the greatest. So the moment you go no contact, the moment you set a boundary, that's when she and the family are going to come at you the greatest. Her flying monkeys might be your siblings. So you just want to appreciate that the first few days of going no contact, weeks and months might be the most difficult. But if you keep moving forward, keep going north to your true self, then her energy and her pull will lessen. If you do continue to talk to your mom, then you can use the pass the butter method. It's a method that I teach. You're having a conversation with your mom. You go in knowing what the boundaries are. And if she tries to guilt you, you call it out. Okay, mom, it sounds like you're trying to guilt me. Maybe that's not what your intention is, but it sounds like you're trying to guilt me. She continues to do this. Then what you say to her is you switch the topic of conversation and you imagine what you're saying is pass the butter. In other words, we're not talking about this anymore. We're going to pass the butter. And if you use these strategies as you're beginning to detach and emotionally individuate and become your own man, in light of your narcissistic mother, things will get easier and easier and easier for you. I so hope that this has been helpful. Namaste, dear ones. Until next time, as about to the love and light that is absolutely in you. You got this. Bye for now.